meeting someone, falling in love, getting married and beginning life together is exciting. But after the initial honeymoon phase of the relationship, adapting to living with someone can be a bit of a challenge. But when there's a whole other culture to consider, it can be an even bigger shift. So how does a culturally diverse couple adapt and keep their relationship intact? Well, Richard and Maria Kane are here to tell their story of merging two cultures, and they open up about some of the other struggles they've faced in their marriage, including some difficult and emotional decisions concerning their son. Richard and Maria have been married for 34 years. They have 3 grown-up children. They are the founders of National Marriage Week and Marriage Week International, and they are here today to join me on the Relationship Hub. Richard and Maria, it's so lovely to have you here today.
Pleasure.
So, Richard, you're British, Maria, you're Swedish. How did you two meet and fall in love?
How did we meet? Goodness me.
Well, we met at Youth with the Mission, like lots of intercultural couples do. I came over to do a course in outside of Haywards Heath, and we met
I remember meeting you in the washing up room. I was doing the washing up with a friend of mine there, and in walked this quite exciting young woman. And I remember you immediately clicked into this mode of like having fun and teasing us about guys doing the washing up or something like that, you know. And I remember you were wearing like a green top, and on the back you said, "There's no business like snow business." And I'm a bit of a snow monkey myself, you see. So I just thought, oh, she's a mountain girl, you know. And then I remember thinking that you were attractive, but then our lives didn't really cross, did they? Not for a long time.
No.
But that's how we met.
So when did your lives cross? And just before you answer that, can I just say I'm very impressed at the attention to detail. Green top, lettering, very, very good detail here. So top marks there. So when did it actually happen then, that moment of, okay, you've met here. Yeah, exactly.
The clinch.
Well, when we finished the course, we went on an outreach. It was like a mission outreach.
To another country?
No, we went
to Spain.
Yeah, but that was part of the course. Yeah. But when we finished, we went on an extra one.
But I might have had feelings for you in Spain.
Oh, well, I didn't think of you much in Spain.
I'll tell you what did happen in Spain, because I was a leader on this thing, you see.
Yeah.
And you know, it became a bit of a joke in our leaders' meetings, because all these guys were falling in love with Maria, you see, and they'd all come to me and other leaders for counsel. Oh, I've got all these feelings for Maria. What should I do? Da-de-da. And I would go, oh, here's another one. And I'd say, like, listen, wake up and smell the coffee. She goes back to Sweden, you go back to wherever you came from, and nothing's going to happen. And they'd go, are you sure, Rich? And I'd go, yeah, I'm sure. Like, and then what happened is, like, fast forward to a year on when we were married, and these guys started ringing me up and going like, was that a conflict of interest? Were you compromised? And of course, I don't think I was really. But then we went to America, didn't we?
Yeah, we went to America.
We planned a trip.
Went for 2 months. Really.
Started to plan together and spend more time together.
Yeah.
And then when we got on the airplane, you kissed me.
Yeah.
That was it.
And you kissed her back, I assume, Richard. It wasn't, you know, didn't have an issue with this.
Kissed her back.
And so was it at that point you thought, okay, this is the one. We are going to get married. Was it at that point?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We had no idea what we were getting into.
No idea what we were doing, but yes, we decided we were going to get married. Yes.
It sounds a bit chaotic, I have to be honest. So, I mean, obviously there's a real kind of clearly physical attraction going on here. But what else would you say was it about one another that made you think, you know, yes, because obviously you can really fancy someone, but then to think about marriage, that's another level, isn't it? You know, I think it's important to fancy your other half when you're married to them, absolutely. But it has to be more than that as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just clearly felt it was also, you know, we felt God leading us, I guess, because we're Christians, you know, so we felt that was important to us. And we had sort of similar vision of things that we wanted to do. And, you know, similar life goals and things like that, which was important. So,
We had no idea.
but we didn't really have any idea that much.
Well, we went from snogging to like, when are we getting married? Like in the twinkling of an eye. And we had no idea. We didn't have any professions, didn't have any careers, didn't have any money, didn't have anywhere to live, didn't have any old money. You know, lots of people got old money, didn't have anything, did we, really?
No,
No.
We just started off on a wing and a prayer.
Yeah, but we did have like a similar vision.
And a commitment. We were really was committed.
Yeah,
we weren't like, oh.
So we were really committed to the idea of like, let's be married.
Yeah.
As if that in its own was a life goal. You know.
Yeah.
Like,
which is
what
fair
do you
to
want to do with
say.
your life? What do you want to do with your life? I want to be married. Well, it's not. It's nice, but it's not quite enough, is it? You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good kind of, frame of mind to be in when you're choosing to be with someone, because, you want it to work and last. But, would you say there are any particular characteristics or qualities? I mean, how important was friendship at the beginning? Because it sounds like you were good friends, that I imagine you had a good laugh together. I mean, was that something
we were good friends. Yeah, of course. We were good friends. And, we liked spending time together and we liked doing things together. And we talked quite a lot, about things, and, so there was lots of things that we did together, but I don't think we planned properly maybe for getting married as such, but we did have a really good, solid friendship and relationship, yes.
Yeah, but also, I think the things we had in common is we had like a faith journey in common.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't realize at the time, but we're both very ambitious,
Right.
We don't want to be passive. We never have. We've always wanted to do things and make things happen and make a difference. And I think that was a real driver as well, because it's not everybody you meet who you're attracted to who is like that.
Yeah.
Lots of people just want an easy, comfortable life. You didn't want that, did you, Dan?
No,
you sure?
Yeah, well, that's why I came to England. No.
You certainly didn't want a comfortable life, did you?
Well,
you could have married that bank manager.
No.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, this whole thing about values, because I think that can make such a difference, can't it, to how you approach the relationship. And if you are kind of going in different directions with those things, it can have a big impact, can't it? So it's an interesting kind of start. I mean, would you recommend that to other couples, how you started married life?
Really, no.
It worked for us, but with what I know now, looking back, is like it's a miracle that we ever made it, really.
Yeah.
Let's think a bit more about, getting married then. So you've made the decision to get married on a wing and a prayer, as you put it, Maria. Where did you get married? Did you get married in the UK or did you get married in Sweden?
We got married in Sweden.
Okay.
So I stayed on in the UK after the course was finished, and I lived with a family, which was really good. So I lived with an English family.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about English culture and about way of life and things like that. And then we got married in Sweden, yeah.
And so did all of your...
what was going on, because I didn't speak Swedish. It was all just like happening around me, And also I didn't have any friends come over or family.
Wow.
The only family I had were my parents, because my siblings had little children at the time and couldn't come and stuff. So when I got there, all your friends thought I was really weird because I had no friends or family. It was like, where has she dug this guy up from? It's quite funny, really.
Well, I think at the time, your family at the time wasn't very, hadn't been abroad really a lot. They weren't sort of used to go into places. No. I mean, I know now they all said we wished we'd have come to the wedding, but I think in their mindset, they weren't like that at the time.
Yeah.
So I think it was a bit of a shock, you're marrying a foreigner rather than an English person.
And at that time, it's like hardly anybody got married to somebody from a different country.
No,
it's much more common now.
Yeah.
Such a long time ago, darling.
So, but it's interesting that, Richard, you say obviously, you're having a laugh, Maria's friends and family thinking, where have you dug this guy up from? He's got nobody there. But actually, that was a big I imagine, I don't know, but I would imagine that was quite a big deal to think, okay, I'm going to get married in Sweden, knowing that actually loads of my friends and family can't be here. But did that matter to you on the day? I mean, obviously, there you are with, you know.
It mattered on the day. As we prepared, I didn't think it mattered. You know, I thought it was just incidental. But actually, it was a massive disappointment. You know, then there was nobody there. You know.
Yeah.
And it was it was a very emotional.
But also, we did have a party in the UK when we came back. So like a second type of wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then all the English people came to that.
Yeah.
But also at the time, to go to Sweden to travel was really expensive because there was no Ryanair, there was no EasyJet, there was no Norwegian Air, there were no cheap airlines. It was all British Airways or Swedish Scandinavian Airlines. And even at that time, long time ago, return tickets were over £250.
Yeah.
And that's a long time ago. And that was a fortune for lots of people. So people couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you could go on the ferry then at that time, but it was a lot to do with costs, you know. There was no, you know, low cost airlines to use.
No budget airlines back then.
Budget. So I think that played a big role. And of course, lots of our friends that we had at the time, they all lived all around the world, you know. So they
because of the international stuff you'd done.
So we already had all international friends. So that was quite difficult for them to come as well.
Yeah. So already that kind of from the beginning, there's that, okay, there's an issue here with getting married in another country. So it's already put extra kind of potential challenges, if you like, because for couples who are living in the same country, getting married, you know, they might have to trek across the country a little bit or something, or travel a few hours in the car, but it's much more doable. So already there's a sacrifice, if you like, that you've had to make, Richard. But of course you didn't live in Sweden. I don't know whether that's to do with the expense. I don't know what. But how did you decide where to live? Because you ended up living in the UK, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
I think it was language mostly, I think, who made that decision and work situation.
Yeah. Because it's still a big thing. I mean, obviously, practical things like language or maybe expense or whatever. But actually, for you, Maria, that's leaving behind your culture. It is leaving behind, you know, family, friends, of which you had obviously a lot of the wedding. You had to say kind of farewell to them. I mean, that's quite a big sacrifice, I would say.
Yes, it's a big cost, you know.
You're only 25. It was a massive step.
No, it's 23.
23.
Yes, it's a big cost that you have to pay, and it's all depends on what type of family you come from as well. You know, some families just better to having a foreigner, a child living somewhere else. So it is a big cost, you know.
How did your family adapt, Maria?
Well, not very well, really. Not really very well at all. No, and neither did yours, really. To having me around, because we're very different.
We thought your family were going to embrace. We thought both our families would embrace the novelty and the, I guess, the interest value in like having an international couple within the family. So we imagined that our lot would travel to Sweden in the summer and, you know, get to know cousins and relatives in Sweden, you know, and likewise your lot would do the same. And there was a bit of that to a measure, but it was all a bit begrudgingly, really. It was never really an appetite to embrace this different culture and such. So that we thought that would go a lot better than it did.
It didn't. No.
But there you are.
And did that feel difficult? Because I think certainly, you know, there's research out there that says, you know, you have lots of people at your wedding saying, yeah, we back this decision, you've made a good choice. And, you know, for young married couples, I think most people would say if their parents are fit and able and around, then they do end up being part of that. You marry into a family, don't you? So to not have that sort of family support, did that impact on how you two related to each other? Did it cause any tensions between the two of you?
Well, I don't think it caused any tension between us as a couple. But obviously we didn't really have a lot of support from either of our families. So,
Yeah.
But that was all okay. But the thing was, within a short period of marrying, your father died.
yeah,
And then that was difficult then because you then really struggled because you felt like you'd abandoned your mother,
yeah,
which on one level you had, you see. So that was like not easy time at all because when we married, your dad was there and quite vibrant. Then all of a sudden, your situation back home in Sweden, they needed you more than they had
yeah,
done before,
yeah.
and you were no longer available. And I think that was really hard for quite a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just, even if you're getting on really well, it inevitably, it's just an extra thing to deal with, isn't it? In terms of adapting to living together, new country for you, Maria. I know you'd lived in different places, but starting married life, to have all of that to contend with. I mean, in one respect, it does show, like you said earlier on, your commitment to marriage and commitment to one another that will kind of work through this somehow.
Could have easily given up.
Yeah, it could easily end the other way. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of living together and, you started married life, it sounds like you've had quite an exciting time to that point. You've talked about your international kind of missions, friends from different countries, doing all these fun things. And then suddenly you're immersed into married life. Maria, you haven't got your family. Was it kind of, the end of the romantic comedy kind of scenario where everything feels all romantic or fairy tale like, and boom, you're at home getting on with life? How was it?
Not really. I mean, I think when we first got married, the friends we had didn't help either. They weren't very culturally astute. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
They weren't culturally aware. So I remember when I had my 25th birthday, and I had a party and invited loads of people. And of course, all I know was to make Swedish food, and they just wouldn't eat it.
Right.
So we realized quite quickly that we had to change the type of people we're hanging around with. Because at the time, most English people I've ever met, or anywhere, the only place they'd been to was Spain, you know what I mean? And that was it.
Yeah.
So we soon realized we need to change. And we made friends with other people who had lived abroad, or other people who had a much more of a broader view of life. So we changed our friendship groups, which really, really helped. And that they have been a massive support to us and really helped us during the years that we lived here. So, so, that's been a great help. But I think when we first got married, that was quite hard, the first 2 years, because those people were quite narrow in their view of things and didn't understand things.
So in one respect, it's that sort of, again, starting married life together, and, you do want to have a sense of belonging where you live, don't you, and feel part of something. And that's a way in which you can feel supported in your relationship. There's, again, lots of research about, having friends, people that can support you. So actually, it was a wise choice to kind of think, okay, we need to connect elsewhere here. This is not working. How did you, merge? I mean, I talked in the intro about merging two cultures together. What did merging two cultures for you two look like in your early years of marriage?
Merging two cultures, it's like two icebergs, really, meeting each other. Because with an iceberg, most of the things that an iceberg is underneath the water, but you don't see. So that's what real culture is, the hidden things underneath the water. That is who you really are. So those are the things that you have to address, and that's what you have to talk about. Those are the sort of assumed values you have, your assumed worldview, your assumed way of celebrating birthdays, or how you do traditions, and I mean, you can have different subcultures even in the UK,
Yeah, of course.
So we had to talk about loads of those things. So we embraced some of them. So we did some Swedish things, we did some English things, and we sort of tried to merge the two different ways.
Give me some examples. Give me some examples of those sorts of things.
At birthdays, for example, we always have cream cake in bed.
Sounds divine. That can't have been too difficult to adapt to, Richard.
But then also other things like our first home was a little house, and it was like a greenhouse because Maria just filled the windows with plants, like green everywhere. You could hardly get in through the front door. They all grew. See, it was like being in Kew Gardens, and like, you know, if anybody came around and go, oh right, so you don't have curtains or blinds, you just have plants in the window, and it'd be like.
And of course, nowadays that's really in now. Suddenly, isn't it?
Yes,
34
yeah.
years later, everybody else had plants.
So that was fun, and then as Maria said, you know, the birthday cream cake in bed is always like good.
Well,
fun.
we did sort of like at Christmas. We did Swedish Christmases and
so
things like that.
you have a Christmas Eve, not Christmas Day. So we would do it on Christmas Eve, and then also have an English one on Christmas Day. You know.
Yeah.
But then, of course, when we could, because obviously after a while, after we got married, the budget airlines arrived, and that changed things. We were able to travel then to Sweden and travel to places.
And then because you're Swedish, you're very direct.
Yes.
So I understand you. You know, I understand if being direct, but sometimes you would shock people.
Yeah.
By your directness. You know.
So did you lose some friends along the way as well then? Obviously, this is we're talking about stuff that's a long time ago. You've been married for 34 years, so you've adapted. You're having cream cakes in bed, all the rest of it. But now, again, back to those early days, I think for any couple, like you've said, Maria, just you have your own subcultures anyway, and learning to be with each other. People always talk about communication, for example, being one of the top, key things you need to address as a couple, which is absolutely true. It's about listening. It's about, understanding one another. For you, coming from different cultures, like you've said, Richard, the fact that the Swedish kind of way is a lot more direct. How did that impact on how you communicated with each other? And were there times where there were miscommunications and you got irritated with each other, or did it just happen and it was fine? I mean, what was that like?
I think when we first got together, we did have a few mishaps. Because we're quite strong-willed both.
Well, I tried to run you over once, didn't I?
Yeah, well, that was my mistake. But
there was an early morning. There was this icy morning. Maria was working in an old people's home. She said, "Oh, can you give me a lift?" So I went out in the car and I scraped like an A4 size window in the ice. She got in. It was only around the corner. Drove round, and then I stopped the car. And then I think you'd normally, if I gave you a lift, you would walk across the road from behind the car. So you stepped out, and as I went to pull away, in my peripheral vision, through all the ice, I just saw a figure. So I slammed the brakes on. Maria was lying under the car. Half of her was under the car. And I imagined this headline, husband 6 months slays wife in icy feud, and it almost killed you. And you weren't even insured,
I bet there was some communication going on at that point, wasn't there, Maria?
Yeah, so we had to work a lot on communicating. Obviously, we did, and then we learned. We found out about things like the love languages, and we found out about these relationship skills that you can learn, and that really kind of transformed the whole situation, because we realized, there are things we can do and things we can find out and change. And
okay, so let's move on then, because obviously you've got 3 grown-up children. How long into the marriage did you decide, okay, let's start a family?
I don't think we decided.
Or did you not decide?
Well, I've probably been married for 3 years, I think, after we had when I got pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay. I often ask couples about parenting because, we've talked already, yes, different cultures, maybe different ways of doing Christmas, etc. Parenting is one of those things, isn't it? People do parent in different ways. And again, with myself and my husband, there'll be things that we'll have done differently in our parenting. And you kind of had to communicate about that. Was there, more of a challenge or a tool for you? Was there some particular ways that you did things in Sweden compared to
you were more... I think I wanted to be more strict with the children than you did. So
I can
remember us having lively discussions about punishment. and
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
scolding
Yeah.
and behavioural issues. You wanted to be a bit
Yeah.
more horizontal, and I was a bit more vertical.
But I mean, we didn't have massive
No.
arguments about it. We just got on with it. I'm quite a practical person, and we just get on with it.
I say, but having said that, I'm going to kind of push this point a bit more, because I think obviously it's a long time ago, and it's easy to say, well, yes, we just got on with it, we're practical, da da da. But like you said there, Rich, you had some lively discussions, because it is a very personal thing and it can push buttons. So you can't ignore it. You can't just ignore it. You have to kind of come to a resolution. So do you remember what sorts of things you did? Because I'm thinking, even for parents watching this today who are thinking, well, actually, they want to parent this way, I want to parent this way, and frankly, we're just not seeing eye to eye.
I think fundamentally, it's about communication. You've got to sit down with each other and agree. But more important than communication is your attitude. So if you've got an attitude like we're going to work, and I think that's pretty much the benchmark of our relationship. We've always had a positive attitude. So when there are challenges with children or finances or other things like that, if you've got an attitude which sounds like, let's sit down and rehearse this. What do you want? What do I want? What's the problem? But your fundamental attitude is that you want to find a solution. Then the communication, the choices, the decisions, the building of a new habit, they all flow out of a foundation. And the foundation is, my attitude is towards you. So I'm leaning into you, not leaning out. And if you don't have that, then you can do all the other things, but they all collapse, because you have to fundamentally be leaning in and not leaning out.
No, that makes sense.
I think that's what we did right from the beginning, because we had to rely on each other. We couldn't rely on anything else. So we had to lean in, and we have to learn how to rely on each other.
Do you think maybe because of those early days of, being from different cultures with your family in another country, Maria, maybe not having that friendship group from the very start, that then you did, as you say, have to become so much more reliant on one another, that it became more of a natural habit as your marriage progressed?
Yes, definitely,
Yeah, because
so we didn't pull apart. We pulled together. We decided. I don't think it was a conscious decision. I think it's just something that we did. Because we needed to, and I think that worked for us in a positive way, really.
And along with that mindset that you've spoken about, Richard, that attitude towards it meant that actually you did come through and instinctively lean on one another in a way that perhaps other couples might not have done, actually.
Attitude is everything. Honestly, and we've worked with a lot of couples, and attitude is everything. Everything else sorts itself out if you've fundamentally got a positive attitude. You're leaning in, you want to make it a success. But if one of you is ambivalent, then you can do your love languages, you can do forgiveness, you can do communication skills, you can do all these things. But it's all a bit of a nonsense, because you have to fundamentally be leaning in and not leaning out. And if you're leaning out, you can make choices that make you into a person that's leaning in. It's not cast in stone. You can change your attitude. No,
that's really good. Thank you. Okay, back to sort of thinking about parenting, and I've often said that with parenting, I'm a parent myself, 2 children, grown up, teenagers, that it's one of the greatest joys and one of the biggest challenges that life presents us. And it's because it means so much, doesn't it? Because these are these precious gifts that you've been given to take care of. So there's obviously that as an initial challenge anyway, but you had some extra challenges, didn't you, with your sort of parenting. Tell me a bit more about some of those difficulties you faced together.
Our eldest boy, David, he turned out to be very severely dyslexic. So, right on the first term in first school, he was on the special education needs register. And then in Dorset, it's a middle school scheme. So he went through school and if really struggling with literacy, and numeracy, just nowhere. And then started first term at middle school when he was 9, and just couldn't access the curriculum, any level. So and yet quite bright boy too.
Yeah.
You get terribly frustrated, and you come home, punch the floor, might as well kill myself. Just things you'd
Well,
never
he said that. He said that.
never expect to hear from a 9-year-old.
Wow.
So then we
well, it even started before, really started nearly as soon as he started school.
Yeah.
His self, he used to be very frustrated because he couldn't access anything. So he used to watch anything he could on television to do with anything to do with science or biology or geography or, anything that history. Yeah. So he learned everything from watching, he used to record everything, had hours and hours on tapes, VHS tapes at the time.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way he could learn, So he learned it all from watching sort of educational program on telly, really, or listening to things on the radio or something.
And then he went, and then we paid, and he went to see a dyslexia tutor every Tuesday and Thursday morning. We'd go, and then after a couple of terms of that, she was a really experienced person, and she said he really needs to go to a special school. And I thought, oh crikey, because I don't really like private education in principle. I said, well, so anyway, she said. So we took him to see this educational psychologist, and he did an assessment on Dave, and he said, oh, he has to go to a special school because he can't access the curriculum at any level. So I said, oh, what happens if this doesn't happen? He said, well, he'll either become a clown or he'll disappear inside himself and you'll never see him again. That's what he
might
said.
take an overdose and die.
So I thought, well, I don't want any of that. So then I asked him.
Sorry, just that must have been a really hard thing to hear. I can't imagine how that must have felt.
That only basically became a fight for his life, if I can put it like that.
Yeah.
We are fighting for him to survive, basically. Yeah. So we have to fight. And everybody, in the normal school education, you got branded as weird parent. You got branded as this thing and the other. Because we basically was fighting for his life. And I remember towards the end, because we had to do loads of special reports and we had to be a bit sneaky because we had to then get a private assessment done, which we couldn't tell the school, because it's all to do with money, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And anyways, so in the end, I remember towards when we had to fight this case, somebody said to me when we had a meeting, well, why are you doing all this? I said, well, I'm fighting for his life, aren't I?
Yeah.
Any mother, any parent, if you know your child might die, you do anything so they're not going to die, don't you?
Yeah.
So then we instructed a solicitor, a specialist solicitor. He advised us. We got a speech and language report from a guy in the NHS, did all that. And then we had a meeting with the Education Authority, and they really had nowhere to go. And we found the school for him 70 miles away in Frensham. And they really could see the potential in him. Specialist school, small classes, great, all sorts of therapies and stuff. And they said, all right, we'll pay the fees. So then he started, and he was there for
when I was 10, he had to leave home.
Which is really hard.
Which was really hard. So from the Monday to Friday, he had to stay as a boarder at this school as a weekly boarder.
And we all cried. It was so hard.
So that was really hard. But then it was hard before because he was.
Because by then he had like a brother and a sister younger who looked up to him and they loved him and he was gone. And just this week, we were looking through some old stuff, weren't we? And it was like postcards that we'd send, because he'd go on a Monday, come out on a Friday.
So we sent him postcards, we used to ring him up, every week we'd do the things for him.
He'd written on this thing, it was a birthday card or something, happy birthday, Dad. It was all over the place. From your weekend visitor.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, golly, that must have been, that's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really hard. But, we tried to make the most of it. So he used to come home on a Friday in a taxi because they paid for him for a taxi. And then he used to go on a Monday. So we sort of made the most of all the weekends, when he came back.
Yeah.
But,
So-
he now himself would say he saved his life. Because he
Yeah.
came back from the first week at school, and he came home, and I remember he sat down and he looked at me and he said, I've learned this week that I'm normal. I'm not awful. I'm not stupid. I'm not anything wrong with me. Because he said everybody at the school are like me. No one knows left from right. No one knows how to do shoelaces. No one knows this and no one knows that. And no one knows how to do the tie. He said, I'm just normal, he said. I'm just, there's nothing wrong with me. And even at that school, he was one of the worst pupils they've ever had.
Right.
So
but
that's
equally, he found somewhere that he felt he could belong. And it's interesting,
Absolutely.
we talked about belonging earlier, didn't we? We talked about you guys belonging, and so fundamental, isn't it, to how we function?
Even now he comes home sometimes and said, thank you for fighting for me. He said he saved my life. Because he's got a good job now and he's doing well in life. He wouldn't be nowhere otherwise.
Yeah. Now, obviously, this interview today is about, relationships and about your relationship in particular. And, we've talked about parenting. Yes, it's a challenge. So what you've described is the kind of challenge as a parent that no one would ever wish for, or, you can't imagine you'd have those sorts of things to encounter. And then together, you're thrown together to say, okay, we've got to find a way through this. And it's traumatic, it's emotional. How did you two navigate that as a couple? How did you manage that? And were there times where it just felt too much for you both, and where one had to pick up the other one? I mean, how did that all work for you?
I don't think we realised how hard it was on us at the time. It was only afterwards. There was a couple of moments. I remember the special education needs coordinator in the school spoke to me, and he said to me, I've read your submission as part of the funding thing. And I said, oh yeah. And he said, I need to tell you, I agree with everything you said. And I just burst into tears. This is like,
wow.
And then and then our doctor had to do a report as part of the thing as well, and he put his report. I mean, I think he egged it up a little bit.
Yeah, but it was probably true.
Because he was kind of, he knew, he put, in my view, the entire family is in urgent need of counselling/therapy as a result of this.
Which I think was true. We were all pretty emotional.
Yeah, but like you said, it just sneaks up on you. You just become used to feeling more vulnerable, overexposed, and then you got, because you're trying to persuade the local authority to do something they don't want to do. You got low-level stress all the time. They just becomes familiar. So I think we just kind of, we just toughened up, really, didn't we? And just had to get on with it.
We had a few friends who were very supportive, who helped us a lot.
It's true.
And that was really. And we had a friend who was dyslexia to herself, and she was very, very helpful.
Yeah, sure.
So we did have some support.
And we had moments like, I remember when we got the approval of the funding, and she came around, didn't she? And our vicar came, I think, and a few other people, and we got some champagne, which we never did things like that. Opened the champagne and all of the glass. It just felt like the most tremendous victory, didn't it?
Yeah, that was right. Yeah.
It really was,
And I think, Maria, you mentioned earlier about sort of learning about love languages, and obviously we've had some conversations before today, and I think, if I remember rightly, Richard and Maria, some of the learning about relating to one another and learning one another's love languages happened during this period of time of all this stuff going on with your son. And so would you say that was therefore a significant help to you in understanding one another and helping each other?
Yeah, because just as our oldest son started school, you got a new job working for a new marriage organisation, which meant that we actually went on a marriage weekend.
Right.
We had to.
Yeah, because it's part of the brief, which was good, which is we went for time for marriage. It's not called that then, but yeah. And that was really significant because there was a couple of things that we were struggling with. at the time, which got highlighted. We were able to talk to some people there, and get some help, and I think that was a real turning point in some areas. We learned things and we worked from there, and so that was quite a good step, because that happened right at the right time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm glad you've mentioned that, because obviously you've gone on this because it's part of your job, Richard, that you're on doing this marriage thing, therefore you should go as a couple. But I think it's one of those topics, people don't always feel as though they should do marriage courses or relationship courses because it looks as though they're failing. But actually, going on a course can be such a beneficial thing. Yeah. And would you say, in retrospect, having done that course, for people watching today, would you say go on a course anyway at any point in your relationship? Absolutely. What would your feeling be?
Yeah, I'd say
we've been on quite a few now. Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
I think I'd say, listen, do the course, because even if you don't even if you don't learn anything, if you're prepared to invest a weekend in your marriage, what are you saying to your partner, therefore? You're saying, I'm investing in you, I'm investing in us. And that, again, it flows out of this attitude. My attitude is I'm leaning in, not leaning out. And I'm not stuck in the middle, being ambivalent either. So it's not about, to me, we've done quite a lot of these weekends and training and stuff. And there's nothing new under the sun, it's all pretty much the same. But what is always different and refreshing is the message which says, I'm prepared to invest in you, and I'm prepared to invest in me, and I'm prepared to invest in us as a couple. Yeah. So, it's about that attitude, that investment that I think. So it's not, my point is this, it's not about what you're going to learn. You will learn some things which are useful. It's about reinforcing a positive attitude, if nothing else.
Yeah, it comes back to, as you said earlier, about that attitude towards a relationship. Although I would say, I think sometimes, there'll be couples who perhaps their upbringing, their circumstances mean they haven't really learned actually some of the basics anyway, and how relationships function. If you've come from a difficult family background, sometimes things that might seem obvious, when you actually really properly apply them to your relationship, can be quite transformational as well. So, you've got people on different scales, haven't you, Richard and Maria, where some, I've heard a lot of this kind of stuff, and then suddenly it makes more sense almost at a particular time in your life. And these kind of weekends can be so significant. But fundamentally, as you've said, it comes back to that regular investing in that relationship and that mindset to enable the relationship to grow, which obviously, back to your story, going on that course, significant for you and potentially helped you and equipped you to manage a very difficult situation in terms of sending your son to this school and so on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you are right also. There was a season when we used to go and teach this stuff in prisons, and the offenders there, they'd never heard anything like this before. It wasn't like, in church or whatever. They go like, I've never heard it quite like that before. That's interesting, but it's the same old, same old. When you go into like a jail or like other places we've been to in Eastern Europe and Asia and stuff, they go like, we've never heard anything like this before. This is like a new moon in the morning, what on earth are you on about?
But I think actually I've learned when we have gone to these things, I realized that even lots of people, in just ordinary people and people of faith, I think lots of people don't know these things.
No.
We just assume that people do, but I don't think people do. I mean, we are part of a church, and I know lots of people I've spoken to, and I tell them things, and they've never heard it before. And I think, you just assume that people do, but they don't.
Yeah. And actually, it's part of why the Relationship Hub exists is because it's so helpful to hear other people's stories and hear how they've navigated things and how they've managed things and their experiences, because you can't argue with someone else's experience almost. That stands out, doesn't it? So absolutely. We endorse courses for marriage and investing. Now, of course, you really do endorse this kind of stuff, Richard and Maria, because I'm going to sort of move on now. You've mentioned about working with this marriage sort of organisation, Richard. this led to something bigger that you didn't ever imagine, didn't it? What did that go on to you ending up starting and initiating?
Well, a lot of things happened at the same time. One of the things that happened was a friend of mine split up from his wife, and when I asked him, what's going on? Are you arguing? Is there somebody else involved? He said, no, we just drifted apart because of the pressures of life. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, housing, career, jobs, money, children, all these things have just squeezed all the fun out of our relationship. And I remember looking at him and I thought, well, that could be me, because at the time we had all those pressures. And so I thought, I wonder if we could do something just to encourage everybody once a year, like an annual thing, to say, if you're fortunate enough to be in a marriage, then you should look after it. You should invest in it. So we decided, we got all these organizations together and decided to call it National Marriage Week. And the idea was we'd get churches and the media to do something really positive, So that was kind of going on quite nicely. Then we got a phone call from this lady who's the first assistant to the then Lord Chancellor, Lord Mackay.
And what year was this, Richard? Just so that we can...
This is 1996-7.
Yeah.
It was the end of the last Tory government. John Major was just about to lose his job and stuff. So she said, are you doing anything to launch your National Marriage Week in London? And we said no. I said no. And she said, okay, well, he's asked me to ask you if we, which is the department, if we put on a launch event for you, and if we invite along all the media, and if we invite along all the organisations that work with families in the UK, and if the invites come from you and the backdrop is your logo, and we put on a lunch afterwards and there's drinks and champagne, and if the Lord Chancellor makes a speech at it, will you be free to host it?
Let me check my diary.
Well, that's what I said. I'm a bit of a cheeky chap, I said, I'll just check my diary, So then, anyway, then what happened was, then I said, okay, well, so we had a meeting with these officers in Whitehall. I remember there was a round table. There was 1, 2, 3 of them, one of me. And I got a bit suspicious. I thought, what's going on? So I said, look, hold on a minute. Because they were going, oh, you'll step forward and all the protocols and stuff.
Yeah.
I said, look, hold on. Why are you doing this? Because we're just a little tin pot charity. And you are the Lord Chancellor's department. The Lord Chancellor's the Speaker in the upper house. He's in the cabinet. He's in charge of all the judiciary. And, why are you doing this? And they looked at each other, and one of them leant forward, and she got her finger out, and she went, but Mr. Kane, you are National Marriage Week, and Her Majesty's government want to do this with you.
That's brilliant.
That's brilliant. And I thought,
amazing.
I'm supposed to be the one with the faith here, but they have more faith. I thought they really believe it exists, because nothing had happened by then. I thought I've conned Her Majesty's government believing something exists that doesn't exist. So then there was a massive media thing, wasn't there? It was like unbelievably exciting. And we won awards, PR Week annual awards in the Dorchester came joint second place for best promotional activity of the year. And the other finalists were Kellogg's, Lego, Microsoft. That was good fun.
That's so good. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a miracle, isn't it? Really and truthfully. I mean, amazing.
In 24 hours, it just went around the world, really. Because we had all these international friends who kept calling us, why are you on Sky News? Why are you on CNN? Why are you on World Service? Why are you on Listen? Why are you on that? We're watching you in Africa. We're watching you in Kazakhstan or something,
Yeah, it's great, wasn't it?
So it just went, you couldn't never even have imagined it yourself. Yeah. It was just the biggest thing you ever seen in the whole entire life. It really was. Yeah. And there was a reporter from one of the TV channels said to you, is this week about getting people to think about the relationships and what we can do to make them work? And you said yes. Well, I need to tell you, it's been a success, because that's all we talked about in the newsroom all this week.
Brilliant.
And it's just all the local newspapers, all the local radios and TVs. I mean, it was on everything. It was every single program.
It was good fun.
It's like Nothing you've ever known ever in your whole life.
Yeah, it's hilarious, wasn't it?
It really was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like totally like awestruck.
And it went on like
It
that
just
for
went
a
on
few
and on
years.
and on.
You know, you couldn't walk down the street. I remember one of Maria's like front page in colour on the Telegraph, like, great big picture of it, and like, and people in the petrol station would go like,
Little double take moment.
it was good fun, and you felt like you were having a real impact, you know, which was
the whole idea of the thing.
no, but that was the whole idea of our marriage.
Yeah, I suppose.
Back to the beginning of the interviews, like we were ambitious and had like a vision for wanting to do something. So that was really encouraging, wasn't it? You felt like, oh, making some
but it just
moves.
It was totally
You couldn't make it happen.
Couldn't make it up.
No, it's amazing. And comes back to this point though, that actually it can be difficult sometimes to promote stuff to do with marriage and relationships, and sometimes obviously the moment's there and it all happens. But, you know, fundamentally, people want to understand and learn about relationships and marriage. They want to learn about how do we make this work and last? How is it possible? And there's this basic drive in every person, isn't there, that causes them to kind of ask those questions. And I don't think people always admit to that, to be honest. But actually, when you kind of really ask them and you learn about them, that's what it kind of boils down to in each of us, doesn't it? In our success in our work and our lives, in our family, it comes back to what does our kind of most nearest and dearest relationships look like, and how are they working and functioning? And there's something in that.
There's nobody at the end of her life says, I wish I'd spent more time in the office. You know, I wish I'd closed that other deal. It's all like, I wish I'd, well, a couple of things. You know, they say, oh, I wish I had demonstrated more love to people around me. But they also say, I wish I'd spent more money. You know what I mean?
Right,
a bit more cavalier, you know, and how to go at things and being a bit more ambitious, you know. But their relationships and like demonstrating love and care and consideration right up there.
But I think at the time as well, because this is obviously a long time ago, there wasn't a lot of people talking in the media about relationships.
Yeah.
In general, it was quite a low key, you know, it was not something that was normally sort of addressed at the time. So I think it was like it was a new thing, because not lots of all these organizations that now didn't exist then, and all the causes who exist now doesn't exist then. So I think it was a catalyst to get people in general to think about these things more. Of course, now you get a bit more people writing about this in the news, and it's more talked about generally. But at the time, it wasn't that climate.
It's sort of tapped into that hunger that's there, and perhaps coming from a background and cultural sort of approach to relationships that you don't talk about them. And actually, National Marriage Week says, no, you do talk about them. You talk about them to other people. You talk about it to one another. In the right context, you grow that relationship. So it's almost something that was revolutionary, but tapped into something that people needed and wanted at that, you know, that time, and still do. And of course, it's spread, hasn't it? Because we've got Marriage Week International. It's in lots of different countries. So it has really grown, and no doubt we hope it will continue to grow.
Yeah, that's what happened. What happened was after doing it for 2 or 3 years in the UK, you know, the phones started to ring, and I was a bit proactive as well. I went and travelled, went to conferences and spoke to people and things. And then we did a pilot in Switzerland and the Czech Republic. And the one in Czech particularly went very well. Switzerland's quite a hard country to run national management because it's effectively got 4 different capitals. So, you know, where do you have an event? You know, and languages as well. But in Prague, it was great. And then they started doing Hungary and Ukraine and then the USA, and then Ireland and Germany and Switzerland, and Holland, massive in Holland, amazingly, really.
Oh, so some of these projects doesn't exist anymore. Obviously, it's all
they come and go.
Come and go in some nations.
But we're up to about 26 countries all running a Marriage Week, and you know, it's a challenge in the UK because it's an old project here now, but in other places it's just like the biggest thing ever, you know. It's really surprising. It's a bit like, you know, I described the first year and all that interest and all that activity. It's a bit like that, and it worked. And the reason why they are able to maintain it at that level year in, year out is in some of these places there's not a lot else going on. It's
Right.
like in the UK, you might have half a dozen reports in social activity every week in the media, all coming out of Islington or somewhere, and
Yeah.
and in other countries that's maybe once every 2 months. So
Yeah.
it's easier to get like the mileage because there's not a lot else to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because I'm aware that we started this interview today talking about your own personal cultural differences and coming from different backgrounds and merging together. And actually, we're talking about different cultures approaching Marriage Week in different ways. But actually, coming back to this idea, fundamentally, foundationally, we hunger to have relationships working. Doesn't matter what your background, where you come from, what your upbringing has been, what country you're brought up in. There's this hunger that we have to see things working.
Yeah, and also, over the years in different countries, people have always said, "Oh, Mr. Kane, what's the program? What's the curriculum? Obviously we need to learn something." And I've gone like, "Well, there isn't one." because like I said earlier, it's not about what you learn, it's about your attitude, and somebody can put on almost anything, and if people pitch up to learn something there, even if they don't learn anything, they're implicitly saying to each other, our marriage is really important. So if you have that as your attitude, then you're going to learn anyway. It doesn't really need that much of a helping
hand. But there are lots of programs anyway in many nations. So you want to use the ones that already exist, There are good programs. Just tap into some of those.
There's some rubbish programs as well, aren't there?
Yeah, but there are some good ones.
There's lots of good ones, yeah.
It's a bit of shopping around. Look around.
Short and sweet, I think.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna come to an end pretty much now, but we've talked about cultural differences, we've talked about some of the challenges you face as a couple with family and so on, and then the start of a national campaign that's gone international. So married for 34 years, what would you say? I know the attitude to how you approach a relationship is important, but what would you say are some of the key things that you would attribute to your relationship working and lasting for this many years and presumably going onwards into the future?
Obviously, we made a decision that we wanted to lean in, I think, towards each other, and to do with the communication and being prepared to learn things and change. Also,
that's an important one, Maria. Sorry, being prepared to change. You said that so quickly, but that's a big deal, isn't it, for people sometimes, being prepared to make changes in how you do things? Because,
there are things that you can't change. For example, I can't change the way I sneeze, which Richard didn't like very much. But I can change the way I approach to speak. For example, if I'm very direct, I can become think more before I speak. I can do that,
Yeah.
So there are things that I can change that might make a big difference.
I think intimacy is really important. I remember once years ago I did this interview on the Sunday program on BBC Radio 4 on the moral value of Viagra. You see,
right?
And I thought I was contributing, but actually I had to lead live. I discovered that I had to lead the conversation. I just got dropped in it by the continuity announcer. So anyway, up against me was a rabbi, you see, and we got into this conversation, and I said, well, as you age, everything droops a bit. And I actually did say that live on Radio 4. And I said, but it's about companionship and it's about, caring for each other and, friendship and all the rest of it, you see. But then he said, no. He said, I can do all those things with all my friends, but with my wife, I make love. And that's the distinctive in marriage, you see. And of course he was right. And so I had nowhere to go there because actually he was right and I was wrong. But I do think, that, prioritizing intimacy, and investing in that is like really important. And,
and we like being together. We like each other's company. You know, we like spending time together. Like to do things together.
And that comes back to the friendship side of it as well, doesn't it? Yeah. That's part of what makes a relationship last. And it's interesting, just to jump back briefly, Richard, to what you were talking about in terms of intimacy. On the Relationship Hub, I've got another interview that I've done with Emma Waring, and she's a sex therapist. And she talks about different stages and seasons of life in order that you can still enjoy sexual intimacy with your other half, whatever stage of life you're at. So I think what you've said there is important, because as you say, as the rabbi said, you know, that connection you have with your partner is quite different to the connections you have with other friends. So to keep investing. So for people watching today, do look at the interview with Emma Waring, which is such a helpful video for anybody who kind of has questions or just wants to learn a bit more about intimacy and how to make the most of that. So I'm really glad you've mentioned that, Richard, because I think people don't always want to talk about it because it's a bit embarrassing. We're a bit British about it all. But we need to have those conversations as well, don't we? So
yeah. I mean, I always say to a young couple, one of the first things you need to do is to get a lock on your bedroom door.
If they have children.
Well, yes, you know.
Not to lock each other in.
No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but
what it means is, if there's children in the house, you should really have a lock on your bedroom door, isn't that?
Again, it's the different stages of life, isn't it? Things you need to do to ensure that you kind of maintain that connection with that other person. Well, Richard and Maria, it's just been a pleasure to chat to you both and to hear your story. I've known you both for quite a while now, but I didn't know as much about your story as I've learnt today. So thank you so much for joining me on the Relationship Hub. Great to have you.
It's been a pleasure, isn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching today. Please do like this video, please share with others, and please do subscribe to the Relationship Hub.